Dear participants, we are going to start our next session, and I'm happy to introduce Stanislav Ivanov from Varna University of Management with a very provocative topic, Robonomics, and all related issues. So, Stanislav, please.
Thank you. Let me share the presentation. I hope you see the presentation now.
Yes, everything's okay.
Okay. So, the topic of my presentation is Robonomics, principles, benefits, challenges, and solutions. I am professor and vice rector research at Varna University of Management. And I'm also the founder and editor-in-chief of two academic journals. The first one, this is European Journal of Tourism Research, founded in 2006, indexed in Scopus and Web of Science. And the second one, which was launched just 5 months ago, is Robonomics, the Journal of the Automated Economy. I'm also the CEO of a private consulting company, Zangador. So a little bit of shameless self-promotion. This is a book on robots, artificial intelligence, and service automation in travel, tourism, and hospitality, published by Emerald last year, exactly 1 year ago, co-edited by me and Craig Webster from Ball State University, and to see the reaction of people and robots when they see the book. So robots have arrived. And many people, when they hear the word robot, they usually think about cute Star Wars robots like R2-D2, C-3PO, or BB-8. However, these robots, they are wonderful for Hollywood movies, but we are not talking about such robots. Also, others think about Terminators, villain robots that are self-conscious, that will come and will kill us all. Of course, this is generating billions of dollars for Hollywood, but we are not talking about such robots. And of course, there are people who think that robots will be much more involved than humans. They will have even telepathic abilities like are the new Olivo, the robot from Isaac Asimov's robot series. But of course, we are not talking about such robots. We talk about these technologies. Robots, automation technologies, artificial intelligence, they have already entered manufacturing. Most of the cars in the world are currently produced by industrial robots. Of course, excluding some small scale productions of luxury cars, but all mass production of vehicles is practically implemented by industrial robots. So while some politicians are afraid that immigrants are going to take the jobs of human employees, of their voters, especially on the other side of the Atlantic, this is not the case. Practically, many jobs will be lost due to automation rather than to immigrants. Also, automation technologies are used in warehousing, supply, and logistics. These are Kiva robots used by Amazon. So instead of humans picking different items, it is the robot that moves the whole shelf and brings it to the human employee. Also, robots are used in agriculture to check the quality of the soil, whether it needs irrigation, are there weeds, etc. Also, in transportation, autonomous vehicles will be a major disruptor in the industry. In the United States, for example, nearly 2 million people are employed as truck drivers. Millions are working as taxi drivers, and practically autonomous vehicles may eliminate their jobs. But also autonomous vehicles they raise a lot of questions regarding the design of cities and traffic control. But also robots are used in medicine. Of course, they are not completely automated and autonomous, but they support human surgeons in operations. And drones, military drones are used in warfare. This is practically the dream of every general in the world because they want to be able to bomb the enemy without sending troops on ground and risking lives. Also, robots are used in households for vacuum cleaning, also for cleaning swimming pools, for cutting grass in gardens, also as guards of a parcel delivery. Of course, robotic guards, they will not arrest you, but they equipped with sensors, cameras, so they are able to detect weapons, and they will report you to the human guards who will arrest you. So practically the robotic guards are the eyes and the ears of the human guards. But also robots are used in parcel delivery. Currently, competition among robotic companies is for the so-called last mile delivery. This is the delivery between the last warehouse where the parcel goes, from that warehouse to the home of the customers. This seems to be the most difficult part to be automated in the parcels journey. Also, robots are used in education, in entertainment, also hotels. In March 2015, Henno Hotel in Japan, in Nagasaki, Japan, hit the headlines by opening the first automated hotel, where instead of human receptionists, we have robots in the form of humans or dinosaurs that serve the guests. Also, robots are used in restaurants as waiters or as hosts to entertain the audience. Also for provision of information. This is a photo of me with Pepper robots at Munich airport, where the robot was providing information to passengers how to reach the different gates. Also, automation technologies are used at airports and other transportation stations. You see a self-checking kiosk at an airport, and also a boarding gate with face recognition. So artificial intelligence is being used there. You don't have humans to check your passport. But also you have automation technologies that are used for urban transport. In travel agencies, you can have such a kiosk to make a photo, edit it if necessary, and send it to your own email. In museums and art galleries, robots can be used as guides and curators. Also in museums and art galleries, we can have virtual and augmented reality. The photo to the left was, I made it exactly 1 year ago at one of the Russian universities, Ural Federal University. Chatbots. With chatbots, we can communicate with the company. We can receive answers to frequently asked questions, but we can also make, for example, bookings for hotel accommodation. In legal services, artificial intelligence is also being used. In Anglo-Saxon countries, in countries with Anglo-Saxon type of legislation, like in the UK and the US, lawyers need to sift through hundreds of possible legal cases and court decisions, which they can use in a particular lawsuit. Unlike the continental type of legal systems. So in that, so they need the support of smart programs, artificial intelligence, in order to find the suitable cases which they can use to defend their customers. But also artificial intelligence is used in search engines and in e-commerce. When we start searching something in Google, Google gives us some recommendations based on our previous search, predicts what we might be looking for. But also in e-commerce, when we buy something from Amazon, miraculously we start receiving recommendations for complementary products to the one that we already bought, or to similar or for other products from the same product group. Also in finance, the so-called high frequency trade, when financial positions are opened and closed within milliseconds. Practically, a large part of financial trade in Western Europe is taking in the US is taking place through algorithms rather than through human traders. You can open the position, you can close the position within milliseconds, something that is beyond the cognitive capabilities of any human in the world. Also, voice-activated devices like the Echo Dot by Amazon, equipped with Alexa software, or in journalism, or robots, they can be used as smart-looking and attentive robotic students. I would love if we have such attentive robotic students. And also in religion, instead of having a human priest, you can have a robotic priest that can read from the holy books. And also we can have sex robots, male, female. They can be adjusted and used anytime. So the tendency to use robots, artificial intelligence, and automation technologies in the production of goods and services will accelerate in the future. And until societies reach a point when all or an overwhelming share of goods and services are produced by such technologies with limited human involvement, such an economic system based on robots, AI, and automation is called Robonomics. And to put it in a more formal way, Robonomics is an economic system that uses robots, artificial intelligence, and service automation technologies as production factors instead of human labor. Of course, this does not mean that humans will disappear from the economic system. No, they will continue. Many people will continue to work, but the role of human labor will decrease. So people often ask me, why RAIA technologies? RAIA stands for Robots, Artificial Intelligence, and Automation. And my answer is this one. It's practically demography. This number, the number of children per woman, is probably the most important number in the history of humanity. It is not the price of gold, exchange rates, or the approval ratings of particular politicians. These are insignificant numbers. This is the most important one: the number of children per woman, because through this number we can see what will be the demographic picture of any country in the world, and we can make reasonable forecasts about its future economic, social, demographic, and political development. What do the numbers show? In order to keep the population constant, considering current mortality rates, we need something like 2.1 kids per woman. Two children replace the parents. 0.1 children compensate for the child mortality until children reach fertility age. However, what do we see? I will go back to the previous slide. Since 1966, fertility rates all over the world are decreasing. Currently, the world fertility rate is at 2.41 children per woman, which is well above the replacement rate. However, this is not equally distributed. We see that on one extreme we have developed economies like South Korea, Italy, Portugal, Japan, and OECD countries, US. Also, we have countries like Bulgaria, Russian Federation, where the fertility rates are much below the replacement rate. For example, in the Russian Federation, it's 1.57. It means that the number of children that women have in Russia are something like 25% less than the number of children that are needed to keep the population constant, considering zero immigration and current death rates. So this means that in the future, currently and also in the future, these countries will face a demographic tsunami. And if we look at South Korea, we see that the fertility rate is so low that the number of newly born children cannot compensate only for their mothers. So it's a demographic catastrophe. Of course, we have on the other side, we have countries where we have high fertility rates, like India, Indonesia, Philippines, Egypt, Nigeria. Of course, here we have also we have Somalia and Niger. These are countries with the highest fertility rate, but also they have a very high mortality rate. However, considering that the survival rate of children in these countries is increasing because of improved health conditions and medical and health system in these countries, the populations of these countries is going to increase in the future, while the population in the countries on the previous slide is going to decline. So, if we have plummeting populations, what are the possible solutions to politicians and societies? Practically, there are three possible options, which we can analyze depending on the time horizon that is needed in order to implement these decisions, short or long term, and the social and political resistance and tensions that these solutions provide. We can, of course, the first solution, the most natural, is to produce people through the natural biological process developed by nature 500 million years ago. However, this requires long-term investment in society, and probably the positive effects on the labor market will be felt in 30, 40 years. Second option is to import people through immigration. However, there might be tensions, social tensions, especially if there are huge social and religious differences between local population and immigrants. Finally, we have a third option, which is the politically correct one, to substitute people as production factor. In that case, it can work short term, it can work long term, and will face probably least resistance. That's why companies are focusing on substituting people as automation factors. From my perspective, for the moment, automation technologies, they compensate for the unborn children. Companies are already forced and will be forced in the future to use automation technologies, not because they want, but because there are not sufficient human employees on the labor market. And this will only aggravate in the future. So why also rare technologies? What are their competitive advantage to human employees? They can work 24/7, unlike humans who can work only 40 hours a week. They could implement various tasks and expand their scope with software and hardware upgrades. They can provide constant and improving quality. They can fulfill their work correctly and in a timely manner. They can work repeatedly. But probably one of the most important advantages, these are the social aspects. They do not complain, do not get ill, do not go on strike, spread rumors, discriminate, etc., etc. All the wonderful things that cause nightmares to human resource managers. Of course, rare technologies, they have a dark side. They lack creativity, unlike human employees. Also, they will not be anytime soon completely independent of human supervision. Although we may have most of technologies currently are human in the loop or human on the loop. But although in the future we shall see more decision-making, more autonomous decision-making in the form of human off the loop, at least we shall need someone to design the software that makes these decisions. Also, rare technologies, they lack personal approach. For the moment, robots can orientate in structured situations only. And they will be perceived as a threat by human employees because they will be afraid of losing their jobs. And of course, they cause privacy concerns. Prior studies to Robonomics have been quite extensive. And but researchers, they have opposing views of technological process. Researchers' attitudes range from positive appraisal of liberating humans of manual labor and creating new business opportunities. This is one extreme. And on the other, we have researchers that fear that humans will be pauperized and they will be made obsolete in a fully robotized society. So some of these are the covers of some of the books that present the optimists. And again, some of the optimists. But of course, we have the pessimists who consider that artificial intelligence will evolve into superintelligence and will practically be our final invention. Also, that technology is a threat to humanity. This is Gert Leonhardt, and also John Cruz, who is the person who coined the term Robonomics, also considers that Robonomics will have a dark side. We also have the transhumanists who consider that humans and machines will merge, and this is the technological singularity. And of course, we have the disillusionment. These are researchers who say that we should not be so overly optimistic, and transhumanism will not work. And many of the forecasts regarding the future of AI and robotics will practically be not realized. A lot of studies have been focused on the use of rare technologies, artificial intelligence, robots, and automation in economics, also in different industry focus, including financial markets, journalism, healthcare, tourism, and hospitality. Research has been focused on the political economy of robots and the future of work, who will be the winners and the losers. Robots are everywhere. And also about the legal and regulation issues, how should we regulate artificial intelligence, what laws need to be created for industrial and social robots. And some authors like David Gunkel ask the question, should robots have rights? Conferences are organized on this topic. Basic income is discussed as this is one of the tools to mitigate the negative consequences of Robonomics, which we shall mention a little bit later. Also, focus is paid on national security and welfare. Even humanities deal with robots, robot ethics, and of course, sex with robots. Even Dan Brown incorporated artificial intelligence as a character of his book. Robonomics, from my perspective, seems inevitable. And 4 years ago, the Office of the President, the National Science and Technology Council, to the previous presidential administration in the United States, published a series of reports for preparing the US economy for the future of artificial intelligence. Also, such report was prepared by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. So, what are the principles of Robonomics? First, we have extremely high level of automation across the board in all sectors of the economy, life, and governance. We will have active use of a variety of single, multi-purpose robots, which can be industrial, service robots, social robots. Some of the robots will produce goods, others will deliver services, but with the third group of robots, we shall just want to communicate. Also, all or most of the products, goods and services will be produced or provided by robots, artificial intelligence, and automation technologies. We shall have also extremely high cost efficiency of production, we shall have economically efficient, on-demand single or few units production of some goods. Currently, this is not the case. And if you want, for example, a very cheap car, we need to produce hundreds of thousands of units of that car in order to have to achieve very low price. However, right technologies, they allow to have small and dispersed factories close to consumers. Instead of, for example, Tesla manufacturing in the US and China and exporting to other countries, it can have factories in Europe, which can be smaller and produce at reasonable prices. So what will right technology do is that they will decrease the efficient production capacity of factories. If we look at this figure, curve A shows the relationships between the production capacity of a factory and the costs per unit of good produced in that factory. So in the first case, this is the curve A, we have efficient production capacity 1, which is in the area where the curve becomes horizontal. However, due to efficiencies in the production process, the curve is shifted to the left to curve B, and we see that even if we have the same production costs, the efficient production capacity of the factory will be smaller. So instead of having one or few large factories that produce millions and millions of units, we can have tens of factories which are closer to the customers, but they will produce thousands or tens of thousands of units instead of millions. And again, we can have similar costs per unit. Also, we shall have a high level of standardization of services due to strict algorithmization of the service provision. Something that is important for higher education institutions is that labor and capital abundance are not competitive advantage, but knowledge and creativity. This is what we should prepare students for. We shall have fewer but more knowledge-intensive jobs. This means that the human will not disappear from the picture. And of course, due to the fact that only a small fraction of populations will be working, we shall observe disconnection between employment and incomes. Employment will not be the major source of incomes. So what are the drivers of Robonomics? Why we would come, and what stimulates the automation of economies? We can group the factors into 4 groups: macro-environmental, micro-environmental, corporate, and psychological factors. The macro-environmental factors are probably one of the strongest. The first group, this is technology. The advances of right technologies, they make the automation of many processes feasible. Previously, it was not possible 20, 30, 40 years ago. But now, the automation of some processes is not only feasible, it's already happening. Demography, or something already mentioned, aging populations, and the huge disruptions in the labor market that we already start to observe. Politics, governmental control on population, the desire of governments to control populations will also stimulate facial recognitions and facial recognition technologies, mobile tracking, probably at one point other devices that can be used. Also, legal framework, anti-discrimination laws, labor laws, taxation, they also stimulate the use of automation technologies. For example, some managers may decide not to employ some humans in order not to be accused of discrimination because of different reasons. So the stronger the stronger the anti-discrimination laws practically makes the human less attractive as an employee, and companies may decide to use automation technologies. They'll prefer to automate rather than be sent to court. Also, labor laws, requirements regarding salaries, regarding work conditions, etc., and also taxation. Even social security payments in developed economies will only increase in the future because the number of people in the working age is decreasing, but the number of retired people who will receive the pensions will increase. This creates huge disbalances in the social security system, which means that the social security payments will increase. But this means that the costs for companies increase, which means that they will have stimuli to automate. Also, culture and society, the attitudes towards automation technologies. Eastern Asian cultures like Japan, South Korea, China, they seem more open to automation technologies, and that's why it's not surprised that these countries are at the forefront of automation. But also biosecurity. Current pandemic is practically stimulating automation because companies do not want to have interruptions in their production process when humans get ill, or when customers do not want to interact with humans due to threat of potential infection. Microenvironmental factors like labor market. On the labor market, lack of sufficient and qualified human employees, or the competitive pressure. If competitors adopt the right technologies, then our company should do this probably as well. And also customers' acceptance of right technologies. If they get more and more used to these technologies and they accept them, then there will be little resistance. On corporate level, the major driver, this is economic efficiency, cost efficiency, productivity, operations management, easy operations management, everything that is driving the efficiency of production. And also there might be some psychological factors like managers' preferences towards the use of robots and automation technologies instead of human employees, regardless of economic efficiency. So this may also be a driver. So how will Robonomics appear? Of course, it will not be like a one-day event, but gradual through probably several decades. It will be adoption of right technologies by individual companies in an industry, but then spread of these technologies among other companies in an industry. Gradual spread of these technologies among different industries and among different countries. And finally, spillover effects of right technologies from developed to developing economies in the form of substitution of low-cost labor in developing countries for automated factories in developed economies and bots. For example, instead of a US company to have a large call center located in Bulgaria or India, they may have they may introduce a more sophisticated chatbot with only several tens of people that maintain it. So what are the benefits of Robonomics? We can divide them into short-term and long-term. The short-term relate to decrease in costs and prices due to economic efficiency, but also improved environmental sustainability of production. In the long-term, the main one relates to improved quality of life due to people will be liberated of hard manual labor, drastic increase of leisure time, something which we have observed even without with the introduction of technologies previously in previous decades. Time for creative and pleasure activities, less or no work-related stress, improved health, and probably something that is probably the most significant one, this is increased life expectancy. Practically, the life expectancy of our species increased. It doubled for the last 2 centuries, from 35, 40 years at the end of the 18th, beginning of the 19th century to 80 plus years now. But also, Robonomics sets the ground for global government, global citizenship, and also accelerated space exploration. Of course, there's a dark side, and we need to acknowledge the challenges of Robonomics. The first and most obvious, this is the unemployment and relative overpopulation, because fewer human employees will work in the different sectors of the economy, and also due to lower salaries. Prior research by Frey and Osborne showed that about 50% of total jobs in the US are susceptible to automation, while Decano show that the introduction of robots is in the US is decreasing wages there. Also, other challenges might be psychological problems of people who find themselves with too much free time and nothing to do and no need to work. And when people have nothing to do, when they have too much free time, they start thinking about revolutions. Fear, social unrest, political instability might be observed. Migration from areas with high unemployment to areas where jobs can still be found, and in extreme cases also wars. But in the long term, we may observe possible functional illiteracy, because humans may forget how to do things once robots do them. Half a century and a half ago, all males and many females were able to ride horses, but now only a small fraction of population knows how to do this. Also, division of society between employed and unemployed, or changes in social values. We may ask ourselves, is human life valuable? Do we need other people to satisfy our needs when we have robots, AI, and automation technologies? Even now, some people live in isolation. They communicate only through internet. They use automation technologies, and they hardly meet anyone face-to-face or mask-to-mask in the current pandemic situation. Also, possible significant decrease in population in the long term. This also needs to be considered. So what are the solutions to the challenges of robonomics? Prior studies have elaborated some of these solutions to technological employment, such as mandating employment, government job creation, work sharing, employee impact statements, tax policies, financial incentives, etc. However, what we can see is that these solutions, they will, although they will work to the road of robonomics as an instrument to mitigate the impacts of technological unemployment. However, in the long term, they cannot work, because if companies have stimuli to invest, to use human employees, okay, they will do it. But what happens when someone needs to finance this one? During robonomics, when society reaches full robotization of economy and people do not need to work, or very few, or they will, the number of work hours per week will be significantly decreased, then these instruments may not be efficient. So these are some of the possible solutions. The first one, this is very important for education institutions. This is constant and fluid, free, lifelong education. Probably at one point, we will need to scrap the current education system, and especially in higher education, where we have bachelor, master, and PhD degrees. Probably we will need to develop courses which are skill-based, and students will come to the university. They will enroll in courses that provide them these skills, but they will have certificates for these skills, but they will not have degrees. Of course, time will show whether this will be a good strategy or not. Entertainment, tourism, leisure activities, volunteering, these are all needed in order to keep people busy and their minds busy. Other things that have been discussed, these are robot-based taxation, universal basic income, birth control, birthright patents, and also redefinition of human rights. I will discuss them a bit now. Robot tax, it means that companies will pay taxes when they use automation technologies instead of human employees. However, I personally do not think that this is practically feasible, because in order to apply a robot tax or automation tax, you need to provide a very strict legal definition of a robot or automation technology. And once you have such legal definition, then you will have companies that produce robots and automation technologies. They will develop new technology, or they will change their current technology so that it goes beyond the legal definition and is not text. What about universal basic income? The general idea is that every citizen of the country receives a specific amount of money, let's say 500 euros, every month, regardless of his or her employment status, in order to cover for the basic needs. It has been discussed for many years now. Its advantages are that it provides income for all people in a society and serves as a social safety net. And it's also easier to administer because it will replace all other social payments which currently exist, and it will be extremely easy to control. However, there are some disadvantages that have been identified in the literature, like it may require a lot of resources to finance, which in the absence or limited proceeds of income taxes may be difficult to finance. Also, it may suppress many people's stimulus to work and improve their skills, which means that these people will become permanently unemployable. And also, it may cause migration and subsequent social tension if a universal basic income is introduced in one or few countries only without strict migration controls. Because these countries, they will become very attractive for migrants to go and to receive basic income. And of course, there are some more creative solutions that go beyond of what is currently accepted, like redefinition of human rights. The current concept of human rights is based on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, accepted by the United Nations, and it gives us a lot of rights. But probably in the future we will need to decouple some of them, and some of these rights may not need to come automatically, like biological right, which means right to reproduce, political right, right to vote, and economic right. This is the right to receive basic income. If for each of these rights we have yes or no, have the right or not have the right, practically we have 8 possible situations. But these 8 possible situations, each of them leads to a quite negative, quite grim picture for the country. For example, if people in a country, they have the right to receive basic income, they have the right to vote, and they have the right to reproduce. What we can reasonably expect that at one point the country may go into default because people will have stimulus to vote for politicians who promise to increase the basic income without any conditions, etc. So practically money will need to come from somewhere. However, if in Robonomics, when most people do not work and they do not receive basic income, then in the second case we shall have mass poverty. However, if we deprive everyone of the right of reproduction, this will practically lead to the extinction of the human species. So this is a demographic crisis. So all of these situations, one by one, taken separately, are not workable. However, there is one combination which is that provides a stable solution. This is it's this one between situation 2 and 7 that you see. People self-select whether they want the cozy life without work, but subject to sterilization and without the right to vote, or they will not receive any guaranteed income, but they have the right to vote and the right to reproduce. Of course, these are extremely politically incorrect and unpopular solutions, but at one point, probably people will need to choose unpleasant truths rather than comforting ones. So robots have arrived and are here to stay. we need to prepare for this. Some references and further reading. Thank you so much for the attention, and I remain here for your questions. Thank you so much. So, thank you so much. I will start with answering some of the questions. I see that the first one is Stanislav, what is your personal attitude to the robots in our life? I personally think I have very positive attitudes towards robots in our life everywhere. I'm personally not afraid of artificial intelligence. I'm more afraid of natural stupidity because artificial intelligence is probably not going to become conscious, and silicon is not going to replace carbon. The second question, what do you think about Terminator film as a possible scenario for our world? Yeah, it's wonderful to have more installments of the Terminator movie, but I personally think that it is science fiction and will not become it will not become reality anytime soon, if anytime. If it requires that artificial intelligence will be first, it requires that artificial intelligence will become self-conscious, and I don't believe that it will become self-conscious. After that, and when this is the filter, then anything else becomes impossible.
Okay. Stanislav, many thanks for your session. And you have already answered all our questions. So I appreciate this too. I and our attendees have learned a lot of interesting and important things about robots and usage of robots and possible strategies of future, our common future with robots. So I think we are more prepared for the future with robots than we were prepared before your session. So I would like to thank you again.
Thank you so much. The pleasure was all mine.
Hope to see you at our offline events as a speaker or as an attendee. And I hope coronavirus will go out soon.
Yeah, it will. It will.
Yes, I believe
probably not soon, probably later than we want, but it will.
Okay. So
thank you so much.
And we are finalizing our session now.
Thank you.
Oh.